Yeah, so a couple of years ago, um, I got the opportunity to grow as an artist and begin painting murals. So I've painted over 20 murals now, like around Orange County. And I want to tell you how that all started because it's going to help people of faith as well step into new things. I got invited to speak at a conference, a creative conference. I didn't know if I should go. I was like, I'll just kind of go naively. They were asking me to do some live painting. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And as we got there and we were eating lunch, the lady who runs the conference comes up to us. Her name's Teresa Dedman. And she's like, hi, Brian, I'm so excited to meet you. I've heard about what you've been doing with the homeless. And she said to me, I want to give you a word. And I said, what's a word? I was such a new Christian. I was like, what is a word? And she's like, well, I'm going to prophesy to you. I said, okay. And she goes, pull out your phone. And I was like, all right, why? And she's like, you should record this. And I was like, okay. So I pull up my phone, I hit record, and for 10 minutes, Teresa prophesied over my wife and I, and like what the Lord would be doing in our life. And one of the main prophecies that she was speaking to me was that there would be these large walls in my city. She started with one wall. She said there'd be one large wall, and you'd be painting the faces of the poor on this wall. And I was like, all right, I've never painted a wall, you know? And she said, that wall will lead to more walls. And she said, watch your process because people are going to be learning from you and you're going to redefine what it means to do graffiti street arts. And I was like, okay. And so about 2 months later, I get this call from this company and they're like, hey, we have this giant wall and it's on a building that's housing the homeless. And we saw your article in the newspaper and we want to know, would you paint this wall? Like, could you do a 180-foot mural on this wall? And immediately I thought about this word that I got, and that was the launch of me doing murals. And so 3 or 4 years later now, I've done 20 murals and there's like 5 more in the pipeline. And mural art has become a huge part of my business. And it's amazing because that's such the heart of God, is that everybody could experience what he's giving away. Like, you know, like everybody has a seat at Jesus's table, but not everybody can experience art. Not everybody goes to museums. Not everybody has the access to art to buy a piece of art. But when you put art on the street, you're literally giving away creativity to everybody who sees it. It becomes owned by the people. And so that's why I love murals now, because it's like, it just feels like it smells like Jesus to me. My usual activities, I feel like, are more centered around discipleship, meaning that there's other artists painting and how can I come alongside these artists to teach and grow and disciple them. And so I used to be painting portraits like every single week, but as my business grows, I feel like I'm supposed to be more of like an overseer. And so I might do a portrait like once every 3 months or something like that, right? And that's okay. That was a struggle for me at first. I'm like, this doesn't feel like it used to feel. Like I loved it when it was more grassroots and I can be out there. But now I'm in a place where like I have an employee working for me. She's my assistant, and and she's helping me with administrative work while I'm sort of overseeing artists and overseeing really large projects right now that we're working on in the streets. And so I just feel like I've given up on trying to understand what God is doing with my company, right? Because if you would have told me I would be painting murals 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you because I never had painted a mural, right? But I feel like is so good at sustaining what he began and also pulling into the future what he started. And so I know that it's okay that I'm not painting 3 portraits a month like I was at one point, but the impact is growing beyond me. If I can like surrender myself to building up more artists and seeing what I'm doing in other cities, then I think the ripples that I've created, the butterfly effect, is actually working better than me just continuing to paint, 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 paint. And so I'm learning that, I'm growing in that area. And I think it's just something the Lord wants to teach me. I'll start with sad story. There's a lot of stories that have made me sad. We like lose people all the time. Like I think maybe like 4 or 5 people that I've painted have passed away. everything from like heart disease to getting hit by a car to dying from a seizure. So there's been like, or there's some people that we just can't find and we're assuming they've died, you know. But it's been a really interesting journey to understand that like sometimes when you're following Jesus, you expect everything to have this rosy ending to a beautiful story. And it hasn't always been that way. It's been like this, like really sort of reality moments. One of the saddest moments was like I painted a portrait of this lady, Laura, and her dream for years was to get housing. Like every time we spoke, it was like, when will I get my housing? So Laura ends up getting housing, and I don't know, a couple months in, she was crossing the street. She loves 7-Eleven like sodas. So she went to 7-Eleven to get a large gulp soda, like a Diet Coke, I think she used to drink. And she got hit by a car and died. And so it became this moment of like, God, I don't understand, you know, like her dreams had come true. She was just starting like her new life in housing. She was living in a home actually with like 4 other people. And this happens, you know? And so like it was just incredibly sad. I didn't understand it. I'm like, how does it end like this, you know? And it's just like, I think on this side of eternity, we won't understand everything, you know? And I'm not accusing the Lord of taking her life by any means, but it was just such a tragic story to a beautiful friendship and relationship. And just super grateful though, like of all the people that we've had that have passed away, the paintings have always been like the photo on the obituary. You know, I think a lot of the family they don't have current photos of some of their relatives who passed away on the streets. And you always see the painting on the cover of the obituary of the person, which I think that's the Lord right there. Like that's his heart. Happy moments. There was this moment once where I met a couple, a husband and wife living on the streets, and my friend John was like, they shouldn't be living on the streets. You should like try to get them a vehicle. And I was like, okay. And so he went out with a sign and he like flew his sign asking for money for one day and came back with $91. And he took that $91 and he pushed it on my chest. He like literally pressed it on me. And he's like, take this $91, start a GoFundMe and get them a van. And so I did that. And the next morning we had, I think, $3,500 in a GoFundMe account because of one man who was homeless that decided I'm gonna begin a fundraiser for this husband and wife. And so that was an incredible happy moment because we got to buy them a car, but it helped me learn something new about people, about God, about being childlike and seeing where the Lord's hand is. And I don't know, that was one of my highlights of my life, is seeing that happen. There's one person for Faces of Santa Ana, it's definitely Matt. Matt is not around right now. I'm not sure where he is. So I'm always praying for his mental health. It hasn't been an easy road with Matt. But I wrote him a letter once and I just thanked him for being him. Like I thanked him for screaming. And I said, Matt, like you don't really fully understand this, but your screams came through as God screaming at me. Like I needed to wake up. I was asleep. And me hearing you screaming was the wake up call that I needed to understand what my purpose here is on earth. So I wrote him this really long letter just thanking him. I gave it to him a couple of years ago, and I still feel the same. Like I think like I don't know, when I'm on my deathbed one day, or I'm at an age where I'm like contemplating like, okay, what did I do? Like, did I live the life worthy of the calling I've received, so to speak? I'm going to think about those screams. Like the scream, I can still hear his screams today. Like those screams changed my life. And so I don't know, like you would always, like if I were to think like what was a defining moment in my life, maybe it was a hug or a meeting with someone or something somebody said to me. But it was actually the really dry, raspy, agonistic screams of a man experiencing homelessness that changed my life. Like that has to be God, because that would have never been how I would have wrote the story. And so I'm forever grateful for him. Like, I don't know, one day in heaven, I'm gonna just like squeeze that guy and give him the biggest spiritual hug ever, you know? That's such a great question. Like if we didn't respond to his screams the way we did, where would we be? And I think that's such a beautiful testament to God's grace, because we heard the screams before, but I heard them as I was not seeking the kingdom. And so the screams that I heard came through to my heart as, oh, like, here we go, like another terrible night's sleep, like, so the screams didn't touch the soft part of my heart that the Lord was opening up when I was seeking him. And so I think that's beautiful, because he had the guy screaming time and time again. I don't know, maybe 5 times, 5, 6, 7 times. And he allowed him to keep screaming near my apartment until it actually resonated with me. And I don't know about you, I don't know about anybody else watching this video, but when the Lord asks me to do something, I don't always obey the first time. And so sometimes I feel like he has to like kind of knock me on the head a couple times. And I'm like, oh, okay, God, like that's what you're trying to do. Just like a child, right? And so like I am such like a child. I think the Lord knows that like he has to knock on my door a couple times before I finally wake up and say, oh, this could be you. And so just always thank him for his grace, because he can always turn a missed opportunity into like a redemptive story. And that's what he did with Matt. When I started Faces of Santa Ana, I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, like, this could exist in other cities. So my business name is actually Faces of Mankind. That's the organization's government name. And so what that looks like now is we have Faces of Anaheim, we have Faces of Detroit, and we have Faces of Riverside, and then a whole bunch of potential faces of in other cities that are just kind of getting started. And so the vision is, what if we can have artists in every city using their talents to tell the stories of the invisible people, the vulnerable, the lost, the hurting, the broken, the widows, the orphans? Like, what if we can tell the stories of those people, invite the kingdom of God into the city through creativity, and we'd use artists in the city that have hearts for the Lord and telling beautiful stories. And so that's what we're doing. And so on facesofmankind.org, there's a sign up sheet. There's like a Google form. So if you're an artist in another city and you're like, wow, what I've heard on this call feels like it's in line with like what I want to do. Or if the Lord is speaking something to your heart right now and you're wondering, how can I use my ability to create to impact my city? Go ahead and log on to facesofmankind.org and sort of fill out that Google form, and we'd love to connect. And I have this vision of like planet Earth. And I see the earth, and then I just see like pins everywhere, like navigation pins. And I just imagine one day you would go to this website and you'd see like 100 pins on all different places of the earth, like faces of Germany, faces of Shanghai, faces of South Africa, faces of Nigeria, faces of Santa Ana, right? Faces of New York. And these are just people like me and you that have decided, I'm going to do something different with my gift. And I'm going to go out and unto the least of these, serve my city. And that's what it would look like. And so that's the dream that scares me. If you ask me what is my biggest fear, is like somehow being behind this vision that is about way more people than just myself and what that looks like to the earth. So if somebody's interested, like somebody in Korea, for example, and yeah, you'd fill out the Google form. The form asks you questions about like, hey, what is your vision for Faces of Seoul, right? And what is your medium? What are some of the things you'd love to see happen? So the questions are really geared towards like helping that person sort of lay out what's in their heart for us to sort of digest it and reach back out. And we have, my heart is really to give away what the Lord's been doing. And so if this person's already part of a ministry or a church, and this church wants to kind of hold and run with what they're doing there, then that's okay. Like if you want to carry the Faces of name, like that is awesome. Like we'd love to see Faces of Soul. Like that would be amazing, And so, yeah, anywhere on earth would be is suitable as long as it's on this planet. Jesus is presented to people all over the world every day in many different ways, right? What I've learned about Jesus is that he presented himself to us as the king of a kingdom, right? He came here to establish a kingdom, and the kingdom, he says, is not of this world, right? And so the kingdom that Jesus brought here really means that I'm a citizen of a country that's invisible called heaven. And heaven has its rules, and heaven has its mandates, and heaven has its governance. And to live under that, to live within that invisible kingdom, that I gained access to by repenting that I am that I've realized I'm a sinner of this world. And he's given me access to live and thrive in a kingdom that others can't see. Right. And that's the invitation to everybody. That's what Jesus came to establish here. And I have to tell you, I've tried everything in the world. I started this Zoom off by saying all the things that I was obsessed with looking for satisfaction. And it wasn't until I realized that, oh, I'm supposed to gain citizenship of another country called heaven, and it's by way of Jesus, then everything sort of fell into place. My very gift of painting was dormant in my life. And that was the first thing that Jesus pulled out of me when he granted me access to what he calls the kingdom. And so if you're looking for what you're supposed to do, if you used to do things that you loved as a child, but somehow in your adult life it's been stripped and you don't know where to go with your life, then try the kingdom, right? And ask the Lord, like, what is the kingdom? Show me what you're willing to pull out of me for the sake of you demonstrating that the kingdom of God is alive, and well. The next advice is to somebody that is already in the kingdom and believes in the Lord and loves God and his people. The first advice is to ask him to help you love people. Ask him to connect you with a people group that you'd fall in love with. And then from there, a guy told me one time, he said, Brian, your paintings will take you where the gospel is not welcome. I'm going to repeat that. Your paintings will take you where the gospel is not welcomed. So my paintings have taken me into schools, government business, government centers, businesses. These paintings take me all the places where the name of Jesus isn't welcome. But this gives me open access. It's an open door to say, come and share about what you do. And so the gospel of the kingdom is ready and willing to use your gifting, to use the things that you love, to open doors to give you access to glorify the King. And that's what I've learned about Jesus thus far. Evangelizing has been pretty easy for me because people are drawn to what he's building and creating through my hands and now other people's hands. And so I just pray for everyone listening here that you would, one, first seek the kingdom, surrender the things that you love to do, your giftings, lay them at his feet, but be naive as a child because he wants to take you on a journey that may look a little bit more like a spider web, not a narrow path that is like point A to B. You might go from point A to point A 1, 2, 3 before you get to B, and just be along for the journey. Be naive. He's your father, and he wants the best for you, and he wants to use you to glorify his name and bring others into his citizenship called heaven. And so just bless you all.